when you first go to prison, it doesn't matter which one, you go to the fish tank for 30 days.
Yeah, at least.
And the fish tank is what?
You're not coming out. That's where they figure out who you are, if you're in a gang, who you ride with, if they're gonna have any problems with you, if you have enemies on the yard. They ask you if you have any enemies, and all that stuff is recorded. And for those first 30 days, it's a process, bureaucratic process. It's a bunch of paperwork they have to do. So you're just gonna sit there. You do not come out of your cell. You come out maybe 2, maybe 3 times a week, and that's for 15 minutes. You get handcuffed at your cell. They take you in those cuffs to a shower where they put you in, lock you in,
shower
then
with
uncuff you. No, they
okay.
uncuff you, and then 10 minutes later they come back, recuff you, take you back to your cell. That's the only time you come out of your room.
And that's for every inmate, right?
That's for every inmate.
And that's what we call the fish tank, because everybody, not only administration and correction officers, but the inmates, they're all watching who's in the fish tank.
Yeah.
Right. So you got to go in there. Any fights or anything like that, or is it
typically in the fish tank? No, because the only person you'll ever see is your cellmate.
Right.
So unless you had a problem with your cellmate, and it doesn't really happen too often. Fish tank, everybody's coming from county. They're if they're new, they're anxious about getting to the yard and stuff like that. So they're just mellowed out. They're just waiting to see where they're going to go, and that's where they classify you too. So you might not stay at that prison. You might go to a max yard. You might go to a minimum yard, a camp, or something like that. You can go anywhere. It depends on what you're classified as, and your custody level. All that says is how much you have to lose.
All right. So from there, let's just presume you're staying at the facility you're at.
Okay.
What happens when you get assigned a cell, right?
Yeah. So they just tell you, they come in, they give you a piece of paper with a unit and a room number on it, say that's where you're going, pack your stuff. Right. Pack your shit, you're moving. That's it.
And
they give you a trash bag. You put all your stuff in a trash bag and you go down to that unit, and they get everybody at once, and you single file, you go down to that unit, and you go to whatever cell is on that piece of paper.
In a state case, if you have a felony, and I don't care if you're getting probation, I don't care if you're charged with getting convicted of murder, you have what's called a pre-sentence investigation report prepared by the Department of Parole and Probation. When I get that, and also my client gets one, whether they're in or out of custody, we go over it.
Yep.
And one of the pages is about prior criminal history. Because if it says you raped and maimed little kids, you're going to be classified in a different place.
Everything you've ever been cracked for, if you've helped the cops and told on your co-defendant or whatever, it will all say so in your PSI. Everything is in there.
As well as you have no charges. Whatever it is, it is.
It'll all be told in there.
And it follows you, meaning if you got a crazy bad record, you've been revoked on probation, you've been revoked on parole.
Yep.
When you go to get parole, they look at your PSI. Right?
Yep.
So that's why we make sure as a defense attorney that it's accurate. So you get this PSI, and one thing we didn't talk about is that when you're in the fish tank, because I've had plenty of clients go, dude, I need my PSI.
Yeah.
Because not only the COs and administration looking at it, who else is looking at it?
The inmates.
And what inmates are looking at it?
Because they want to make sure that you're not a rat or a child molester or a sex offender of any sort. They want to make sure that you're on the up and up, I guess, to be on the general population prison yard with them. And they call it protecting the football. There's signs that they look for. You pretty much know if a guy has a messed up PSI or has a messed up charge or something, because they'll be, because you have to keep it. If you go to court and all that, you get a PSI, fold it up, keep it nice and neat, because when you get to prison, they're going to want to see it. And the guys you always know who it is, because they're like, what? I didn't get one. Like, yeah, you did.
Yeah.
You got one. We call it protecting the football. They're like, what? Yeah, I'll get it right away, and they'll go to their cell to get it, and then all of a sudden you get locked down, and they're like getting escorted out in cuffs.
Well, let me ask.
If you've never been in jail before or anything like that, you think all the movies you've ever seen, like, do I have to beat up the biggest guy I've ever seen?
Shawshank Redemption has its 25th anniversary. So the guys are with their clothes,
and
the one guy
that's
pees
old school
himself.
prison stuff, but it's kind of like that, and it's very aggravating. I mean, there's a lot of anxiety that comes along with getting to prison for the first time. You don't know.
Well, especially you're 18 at the time.
Yeah, I was a kid.
And you're a DUI. You're not gangbanging fool.
But I'm right on the yard with everybody else.
Right.
That's because I'm waiting to go to camp. So I'm waiting on the yard like everybody else. And I walked out, and the first thing I see is like a guy kissing another guy through the fence.
Aww.
It was
romance. See, there's love up there.
Yeah, there is. There's love to be found in the prison yard.
Is that
Anybody
right?
lonely? Just
Becca?
throw a brick through a window and wait for the cops.
It's
like that. That's a gang. You just made a gang sign.
I did.
You trying to get me beat up? Man, what are you
Shit,
doing?
I'm not trying to punk nobody.
Get me stabbed.
Is that the right term, punk nobody? I don't want to punk anybody.
Kinda.
Okay,
yeah, we'll work on it.
Okay, I need help. All right, so you go in there. Now, what about the guys that are hardened criminals, been in and out of the joint? They're just kind of on cruise, right? They're not
there's
adapting.
inmates and there's convicts. That's how they kind of separate the difference between the two. Like the guys that are new are still learning the ropes, haven't done much time. But then you've got
Wait,
the
wait,
guys.
those are inmates.
Yeah.
Convicts-
Those are labels that we put on ourselves.
Okay, so
That
that's a,
people-
so a guy that's new to the prison
Yeah,
system.
he's a fish. He's an inmate.
Got it.
Kind of synonymous there.
All right. So what about what's a convict?
A convict is more of a term of respect for somebody that's done a lot of time. They're set in their ways. They have their own little program. They call it the program. You know, it's counterintuitive. You think that you'd be doing something different to break up the monotony every day, but you don't. You try to do the same thing every day the same way, and it makes the days blur. It makes them blur together, and next thing you know, it's been 5 years. You know what I mean? And it sounds crazy, but that's how it works. Like it really does. If you're a new guy, they give you the riot. It's the riot act. They'll tell you when you move into that cell. If a guy moves into my cell and he doesn't know any better, I'm supposed to put him up on that stuff. So it can actually reflect on me as an inmate if I don't put him up on teach him what the rules are. Like, hey, this is what we do. This is where we sit. This is where we don't sit. You don't live with these people. You're allowed to talk to them. Blah 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 blah. And it's if he doesn't follow that stuff, then it comes back to me as well. Like,
When you say it comes back to you, what could happen to you?
hey, Luke, what's up with your celly, man? That's how it's asked to be.
TheVegasLawyers.com. Lawyer up.